our buddy Mark Schipper from Fifth Down. Salutations, brother. How are you?
I'm good, my man. How are you doing today?
Man, always better when we're catching up. Mark, let's jump into it because we got a ton. Money is running rampant in this sport, right? We know that from that perspective, financially, everybody, including the players and coaches, seem to be doing well. Attendance and ratings are up. And we have some new blood in the college football playoffs. But if you ask most fans, they don't seem happy. I've asked this to a lot of people recently. Obviously, I respect the heck out of your opinion. Is college football in a good spot right now?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I think it's yes and no, and it depends on what you're looking at. You basically got three different constituent groups. You got coaches, players, fans, and they're all sort of participating in the sport in different ways. So coaches, they're in a difficult spot, but the salary is so good, the lifestyle is so good that you really can't whine as a coach. You just got to get the job done. As a player, it's probably about as good as it's ever been. You have more freedom than NFL players, unlimited transfers, immediate eligibility. You can earn your value on the open market. A lot of great things are happening for players, so it's probably the best time ever to be a player. But as a fan, it can be difficult because college football is an emotional game, and the attachments are very emotional, and they go back through family lines. Fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and the connection is to the school, to the uniform, and to the people who compete the best for it, the ones who make the best memories for you. So if guys are coming in for a year, taking some money, performing however they perform, and leaving, what does that leave the fans? You look at a guy like Fernando Mendoza at Cal. That guy was about to be a Cal Berkeley legend. 98 yards with the boys. It was a national story. Beat the big rival Stanford. The season ends and Mendoza hops in the transfer portal, and he's leaving Cal. So a burgeoning Cal legend is now going to go play for someone else, potentially even UCLA, their rivals. So it's a mixed bag.
Look, the NFL MVP and the Heisman Trophy have basically become the quarterback for the best team in college football. And I think Dylan Gabriel's really good. Cam Ward had a good season. But I thought if this was ever a year that the Heisman didn't go to a quarterback, this was the year to do it. And I don't think you could have went wrong with Ashton Jeanty or Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter ends up getting the Heisman. Do you think they got it right?
I can't argue too much against it because I agree with the statement you just made. You couldn't go wrong with Ashton Jeanty or Travis Hunter. And my thinking on those two guys kind of went back and forth throughout the season. And I had good reasons that I thought either one of those guys could have won the trophy. I think they were both about the best individual player in college football, which is what that award is given out for. It's who is the best college football player. So there was a lot of debate and disagreement over what statistics mattered most. People got upset that they talked about Travis Hunter and the amount of snaps he was on the field. Others said Jeanty ran up a lot of his numbers against weaker competition, et cetera, et cetera. Both guys were fantastic. I can't make a strong argument against Travis Hunter, so I think it was just Jeanty's bad luck to be as good as he was this year.
Favorite hire of this coaching carousel so far?
Well, it's been an interesting one
it?
For certain. Yeah, it has. Belichick to North Carolina being the most interesting by far. Favorite. Let me say most interesting. I'm interested to see what Dan Mullen does at UNLV because Barry Odom built that quickly into a nice Mountain West program. They're well positioned going into the future. But Dan Mullen's biggest issue at Florida was he didn't want to play the modern game as a coach. He didn't want to recruit, and he didn't want to get involved in – he's probably not going to want to get involved in the NIL situation and get into the nitty-gritty of building a roster every year and re-recruiting your roster at the end of every season. So if the guy doesn't like to recruit in the first place and you kind of have to re-recruit your rosters at the end of every season – Dan Mullen at UNLV is interesting because if he does well, he'll be positioned for another big job, and if he doesn't, obviously it's over for him. So him and then Rich Rod at going back to West Virginia also is an interesting move to me. I want to see if he can rekindle anything of what he had in the earlier part of the century.
Obviously, we live in the era of the transfer portal, and look, teams we've seen it be game changers for some programs overnight. It's not an automatic success rate either. We've seen some horror stories, Florida State being an example this year. One year it hits, it goes great. The next year, it's not so good. However, From what you've seen so far, what program do you think's done the best in the portal up to this point?
Well, with a lot of the portal stuff, I like to wait until the spring and see how everything finally shakes out, because you got 2 windows and you got a ton of movement. But in this initial winter portal window, what's jumped out to me is if you look at some of the rankings and the experts who are rating portal movement, 5 of the top 10 are SEC schools. So it's interesting to me to see the SEC is generally the most aggressive football conference, period. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, winning titles, recruiting players, doing whatever it takes, et cetera. So I'm interested to see the SEC is dominating the portal. One of those programs being Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, probably because he focuses on it and because he believes in the portal to build a roster, Ole Miss is arguably having the best portal season again, and I don't think too many would say that Ole Miss was out of the top 3 last year in portal transfers. So for anyone who thought Ole Miss might have a 1-year window to win big or make the playoff, it looks like they're going to have another strong roster again next year, and the Rebs should be right back in contention. It's going to be about can Lane Kiffin figure it out all the way.
How much do you think weather's going to be a factor this weekend in the playoffs?
Well, a little bit. But the place I think, one place where it's going to be could potentially have the biggest impact is SMU at Penn State. If that is, it's supposed to be cold. There could be snow. SMU obviously coming out of Dallas, don't practice or play a lot in weather of that nature. So if it's savage conditions, I think that's a little bit of an advantage to Penn State. I don't say that's definitely the decisive advantage, but I think it favors Penn State. And then the other one near me, where the weather's going to be cold and potentially snowy, it's not going to be as big of a deal because they're both upper Midwestern teams, which is Indiana and Notre Dame.
All right.
So,
if you could, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
All right. If you could, this is the tough one. You can only pick one matchup, Mark. That's it. You're forced to watch one matchup this weekend. What's the game?
Man, that's an interesting question because, college football guys like us, we're junkies for this stuff. We watch them all. The number one game, I think if I was picking, probably Tennessee at Ohio State. I think that's the biggest brand matchup at the Horseshoe. Ohio State with all its issues, the letdown of the Michigan game, and then Tennessee's fan base and Tennessee's hunger. I just think you're talking about a major clash of programs up there. And I think it could be one of the more interesting games as well, and maybe more defensive than people are thinking. We got 2 really good defenses going at it.
Last one for you. We'll catch up before the college football playoffs are over. But what do you think? I don't want to say the national champion is, but who's coming out of each side of the bracket the national championship game will be?
Put me on the spot with that one. Let me just looking at it, let me go with pure instinct. I think Oregon comes out of one side, and I think Georgia likely comes out of the other. So I think we're probably going to get an Oregon-Georgia game with Dan Lanning against his old team and his old boss and Kirby Smart. That's my instinctual feeling, though. I haven't filled out my bracket yet, so that might not be my final pick.
Appreciate you, Mark, as always. Happy holidays, and we'll catch up right before the college football playoffs are over. Thank you, buddy.
Happy holidays, guys. Appreciate you as always.
You got it, Mark Schipper, everybody. 5th Down College Football.